Hi everyone. I started a Instagram series. It's also on TikTok. It's a portrait and interview series I'm calling Bad Day Portraits. I've been wanting to do a portrait series for a while now, but I finally went live the day after I shot my first interview, and I went live without any planning or backlog. The day after the Atlantic shooting, where a young white male shot up three massage spas in Atlanta and killed 6 Asian women. And I felt so angry and helpless. I needed something to channel my emotions into. So the very next day, I talked to my friend Antoine and asked if he would be my first subject, and he shared a bite-sized story. And so that is the gist of the series. It's sharing bite-sized stories from Asian people living in the US. This interview is I have 7 episodes live, and this is actually the third interview I did. It was a little hard to cut down, and there's not just one bite-sized story like the 7 that I have up already. But my friend Kathy, who so graciously is allowing me to post this video. She originally was okay with me pulling the audio, but she's letting me use the video, and I feel grateful. So yeah, this will be the first YouTube upload of this series. This is the third interview I've ever done, but the 8th episode, because it took me a while to finally do something with my Zoom recording. If you are interested in following along, I'm posting snippets on TikTok and also on Instagram, IGTV, and I will link all those below. And thank you for watching. So this is brand new. You're my third interview. And so basically we can make it whatever we want. But I was thinking my inspiration was kind of like Humans of New York, but with an Asian
Mhm.
like spin. Um, and so just have some questions to ask you if there's anything that resonates, and we can
Yeah.
just like go from there. And
Okay.
they're supposed to be bite size.
Yeah.
So we can just pick like a small story. But my very first question for you, my dear friend, is if there's anything that is on your heart to tell. Like, is there an anecdote that has haunted you all your life that is coming up because of recent events, that you already have ready that you want to share? Because I know that sometimes it can bring up
Um,
specific memories.
I mean, I have a lot like of just memories in general being Asian for my entire life. You can't change that.
Yeah, it's not in our control, which is part of the heartache, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
even if you wanted to, we could not change it.
yeah, so like I think it's races in the face, and that's why we're perpetual foreigners, because say like way back when European immigrants came over, like second generation, first generation, when they lose the accent, they become American pretty much. And for us, we're always going to look Asian. Like we can dye our hair blonde, we're just going to be a blonde Asian.
Yeah,
And so,
with everything that's going on, are you feeling numb? Is it just old news to you?
um, it's, I am not surprised at all by what's been happening. But I am still disappointed, and I'm still very sad and still very angry. But I knew this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen. In my opinion, I thought that these types of attacks would occur, not necessarily to older people. I think that part was a little bit surprising. But really, once the US opened back up after people were let out of their homes, and with Trump's rhetoric, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the common response the more I talk to my friends, that they were sad and they feel a little bit like disillusioned by like the media's surprise that this is happening when we saw the writing on the
Mhm.
wall for a while.
Yeah, I think think something else that like is like notable for me at this point, because this is not like even like the educational portions are like generally not new to me because I studied Asian American studies. So I like have a degree in all this stuff. So like model minority, that's not new. Um, and I think it's the well, I guess it's more like the amount of white people who are always shocked. And each time I post any type of story about race, I lose some followers. And then on my art account, because I post on there anyways, because I know there's people in that audience. There's a lot of dogs, which is funny. There's dogs and cats. And I know there's humans behind that account, you know?
I love that you say that because you're literally talking to me in front of portraits of dogs.
Right. And you know there's got to be humans that can type behind those dogs and cats. And then there's a lot of white women that just happens to be like who's following me. There's definitely other people as well, but the ones who express shock or confusion and like they don't know what to do and they are reaching out, and I'm glad that they're saying something. And I think that's where like you want to be on brand and you want to be promoting your niche or your kind of work and your expertise there, but it helps to educate and to inform people that you're also a person. Like, so I'm an artist and I like draw tacos, but I also draw Asian food. And there's a real person here and there's a reason why I choose my subjects. And so I'm an Asian Texan. I was born in the Houston area and I love food. And so a lot of the food that I illustrate in watercolor are food or like, I guess, types of cuisine that are prevalent in Texas. And then also contributions from immigrants. And so there's a lot of Asian food. And it's interesting that people are surprised that I talk about it, or they're surprised like that all of this is happening, or my story that's captured in my art.
Can you tell me more about the story that they find surprising? Actually, one thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel when people say that they're shocked? Does that feel like a microaggression in a way?
Yes. So the people who say they're shocked never surprise me that they're shocked. And usually the ones who actively choose to say it are expressing some sort of vulnerability on their end as well. And usually they like either know me or have supported me in some way, like either in real life or have shopped at my store. And so there's more of a connection than just the random person where we've never really interacted beyond a like. Like it's someone who at least DMs me sometimes or has bought from my store or has met me in real life at when I used to do things in real life, which I don't do anymore, like a pop-up or something. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it kind of hints at them not diversifying their feed and their friendships and what they're reading, what they're seeing, what they're consuming in various ways. And so I think that's very telling, but I'm glad to be the person who usually draws dogs and snacks and is that person who's like, oh, hey, by the way, do you know this is happening? And I don't necessarily think it's because they're racist or anything. I think sometimes it's just they don't know that that's out there. They don't know a diverse group of people. But I'm glad that they reach out saying that because sometimes it's challenging. It's like re-traumatizing to talk about some of these things that have happened to you and things that are kind of like recurring themes in your life, like being told that you're not American or you don't belong here or to go back to your country. When you're born here, when you are American, when if you were sent back to your country, you'd be illiterate. That would be me. Like I wouldn't be able to read anything. That'd be like pretty sad.
Yeah.
And so I guess
I feel like a better response. I see the heart and intention when I hear, I can't believe this is happening, or this is so shocking, or I just can't believe it. I don't think they realize when they say those particular words, it's re-traumatizing because now as the person's sharing your story, you feel like you have to fight for credibility, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
my life. This has been white noise the entire life and my entire
Yeah.
life. And now
Yes.
I feel like, even though this wasn't your intention, now I feel this responsibility of making a case. Like, here are my
Yeah.
receipts. Like, I feel like a
Yeah.
better response might be, I'm sorry this is happening,
Yes.
instead of, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah. I think the people who are more self-aware and more aware of bias in other situations, not necessarily around Asians and Asian Americans, they are more likely to say, I'm sorry that this is happening to y'all. I'm sorry if anything is happening in particular to you as my friend or as my someone who I'm interested in, if nothing else, like just on social. Um, and I think if they're that kind of person, they're also more likely to ask how they can help. And I think that that's really great. And what I've been saying to people who are outside of the Asian and Asian American communities is that what I think is most important is that they spread the word that this is happening, because they're going to also know people who don't know people who are Asian.
Mhm.
And they're going to also know people who don't follow the news and have no clue that this is happening, that this is even a thing at all.
Mhm.
Because being Asian American, we're just so often forgotten. So when people, and I guess this is one of the things that is really triggering to me, or just is like upsetting, it's that we are so often forgotten, that we exist and we care, but nobody cares about us, that nobody like even thinks about us. And so it's almost like there's black and brown and white, and then there's nothingness. And it's really frustrating because we're never going to be white. We're always going to look Asian, no matter how long we've been living here, no matter how many generations. And so if we don't even exist, how are we going to have the type of support that we need?
Right. Exactly. They have to see and hear us.
Yeah.
Ah,
And so, and also with those people who are non-Asian, not part of the Asian community, it's really important for them to bring this up to their family and their friends, because that's a trusted person saying it. It's not something in the news and something about people that they don't know. And if you don't know someone, you can like shrug it off and be like, oh, well, that's sad, but that's not relevant to my life.
right.
But when you hear this personal story of, oh, this person's friend, like this is happening to them, it just means more.
Yeah. It's a personal touchstone. Is there anything else that's on your heart that you would like to share? Any past experiences that have kind of followed you particularly? It does kind of become just kind of white noise where most of the microaggressions I've personally experienced, which is just white noise now. Like, they just kind of
Mm-hmm.
blend into the background. um, so they might not have like one particular moment where you're like, keep
Yeah.
thinking about this moment.
There's a lot of like, go back to your country, and then a country is named.
Yeah.
And it's usually not Vietnam. Not that that's like truly my country, although I'm Vietnamese. It's usually China. China is usually the country I'm told to go back to, which I've never been to. I think I've been told to go back to Japan. Korea has been brought up as a place for me to be brought up or to like return to. And then related to that, there's a lot of like people wanting me to teach them some sort of Asian language, which is something that no one should trust me to do. Like, people should not want me to teach them Vietnamese, because that's going to be real terrible for them and for me. Like, you want an illiterate Vietnamese American person to teach you Vietnamese, but really they don't. They want me to teach them Japanese, Korean, or Chinese, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, I cannot.
Yeah.
I will say that there was like a particularly like a more humorous version of that microaggression where I did stand up for myself. So it's kind of like a funny anecdote. But at one of my workplaces, we were doing some sort of programming, since I worked in higher education and students were involved. And so there was a longer list of student names. And so somebody in a leadership position was looking through these names, and there was one name that they could not pronounce. There were probably more later, but there was one name. And so they're like, "Oh, Kathy, come here." So I go over there. "Kathy, how do you say this?" And then I shrugged and I'm like, "I don't know how to say this." And they were like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know why I asked you. And in my head, I'm like, that's a Korean name. I really don't know how to say it. Like, what I would do is when that person was there, I'd be like, "Hey, oh, this is you. How do you say your name?" And then I would repeat that over and over again until they approved the way that I was saying my name. But no, that's not how it went.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
assume the Asian person is the spokesperson for all Asian countries and Asian
Yes.
languages.
Yes, all things Asian. And so when he said, "Oh, I don't know why I asked you," I said, "Oh, you asked me because I'm Asian," and like looked deep into his soul. Just like the idea of one Asian person as a spokesperson for like all things Asian is a recurring thing in my life, like being the only Asian American person on whatever team, whether that be a communications team or just like entire like huge groups of people. Like I think there's been like a few like diversity training type situations where the room is huge, but I'm that one little yellow dot.
Yeah,
I
the
can't
token.
speak for anyone. And when I have to make this declaration like of I cannot speak for all people who are Asian American.
Yeah.
Or all people in Asia. I really can't speak for people in Asia because I don't really know, and I've been to Asia twice, and
Yeah.
it's so hard because everyone's looking to you to speak on behalf of like billions of people,
Yeah.
and you're one person.
Yeah.
You can only speak for yourself.
I feel like what would help alleviate a lot of that is just to give Asian Americans and Asians in America, like I'm
Yes.
learning that not everyone who is Asian in America identifies as Asian American.
Yes.
But
Yes.
just to give them more platforms so that they're not limited to just China as their reference point. And for me growing up, it was Jackie Chan was the only Asian guy that the kids knew. And so that's what they called me growing up. Like we need more stories out there, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like part of a mass education that needs to happen. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying to
You
think
gave
if
me